Liz and Jonathan, please have a seat. So we've been looking over the last week since Jesus' resurrection was celebrated on Easter at a number of the various resurrection appearances of Jesus with the disciples. And we come today to this wonderful story of Jesus on the beach with a number of the disciples. They're not all there. It's only like 7 out of the 12. And part of me wonders, what the conversation was prior to when Peter finally speaks in the text today. I can only imagine that these guys are hanging out going, what do we do now? What do we do now? It's not like, Jesus gave us a handbook for how to create the church. It's not like we've got specific instructions that we can follow here. What are we supposed to do? Reminds me of coming back from a very meaningful retreat experience where you come back, you've had a great time, you've really been kind of spiritually cracked open and filled and energized, and you're like, okay, I'm back. And now what do I do? And we fall into that kind of despondent sense of, wow, that was great, but daily life, it's a little harder to be so excited about God when I'm bagging the groceries or working the accounts or dealing with employees or that hostile children who are getting angry day by day and eager to get out of school. And yet here they were. And so Peter does what he's always done. He's like, dude, let's go fish. And so they jump in the boat and they go fishing and they fish all night long. Have any of you all fished all night long before? How many of you have fished all night long and not caught a thing? It is no fun. I mean, I love to fish. And, the fishing's always good, even if the catching is slow, they say. But it's no fun to fish all night. To be on a boat all night long, throwing the nets out, Yeah, you have some good time with your bros, and you have some great conversation, but you come home and you wanted some fish, because end of the day, or end of the night, you get to the beach, and you'd really like to cook some fish, and eat some fish, because you've been working all night long. And the net was empty. And they, I'm sure, were not exactly too excited about that. And as they approach, even before that, part of what just that little section says to me is these are ordinary guys. These are guys like me and Alex and Buddy and Ricky, and when we go fishing and hanging out and enjoying, and I forgot to mention him too. It's normal life. It's what they just have always done. But they're coming back to what they have always done, having had this incredible period of life-changing experiences with Jesus, including, no small thing, he rises from the dead, right? But still there is this sense about them of like, Odie-bo, what do we do now? How do we top that? Well, they're coming close to the shore, and there's some dude on the shore, and they don't recognize him, which is, again, kind of surprising, because they've seen him twice now since he was raised, and there are other appearances that we've read about that were not part of John's gospel, and yet this theme seems to happen over and over again, that somehow the risen Jesus isn't always easily recognizable. And I think that's true for us as well. I think we sometimes have trouble recognizing Jesus in our midst. Sometimes because we don't expect it. We don't expect Jesus to be in the classroom or in the supermarket or at our job. We go into those places not having cultivated a desire to find him there, or an expectation that he would meet us there. And so we miss him, or we're in danger of it, just like the disciples were. And so this guy on the beach says, "Hey, catch any fish?" Which of course they said, "No." He goes, "Just throw your net over on that side, of the right side of the boat. Throw your net on the right side of the boat. You'll catch some fish over there." And I can hear the commentary in the boat, right? "Do you know this guy? Who is that? What is he talking? We've been fishing all night. Just throw the net. Throw the net." So they throw the net, and lo and behold, there's fish galore. Now, sure, it could be a miracle. It could. But like, there's plenty of times when I've been cast net fishing with Alex for bait fish, and when you're in the water, you can't sometimes see where the fish are, and the guy who's standing on the shore can see where the fish are rippling, and they can say, "Hey, over there, throw it over there." It could have been as simple as that. Because the really important thing about what happened is that when they cast that net, and when that net was loaded, it became a revelation to them. It reminded them of another fishing trip when something very similar had happened to them. And it was Jesus who was at the root of it. It was Jesus who had made the catch happen. And John is the first one to snap. He goes, "It's the Lord." And Peter, hearing John's words, jumps out of the boat. It's really funny in the scriptures. The scriptures, the two we have here in the New International Version, it says in Spanish that Peter was semi-nude, semi-naked. And then in the English translation, it says he had taken his robe off, but it doesn't say he was naked. The word is he was naked in the boat. That's what it says. But you know, we just can't say that. Sometimes people feel like we can't say that, right? But we can. He was naked in the boat, but he put something on to go back to the shore. And he runs and he sees Jesus, and Jesus welcomes him. And he already has a fire and a fish and some bread, because Jesus knew where the fish were. And the disciples are astonished to find him yet again, in the middle of the most mundane of their tasks. The job they've done all their lives, with their families and with their friends. That is where Jesus appears to them. And I want to think a little bit about that with you. Because if this is the only place we expect to see Jesus, then we're missing the whole point. We come here to experience Christ's presence in our lives. In the table, in the music, in the words, in the sermon, in the experience of love and friendship that we share. But we do that here so that we become capable of experiencing it and finding it and discovering it everywhere else as well. Because it's not like Jesus is just here. He's not. He's out there too. He's in your family and at your dining table and in that classroom with those rowdy kids and in that workplace with those difficult employees. Jesus is just as much there in those disappointments as he is on the beach with a bunch of fishermen who are disappointed that they didn't catch a doggone thing all night long. Jesus is right there with them and will be, can be, likely already is right there with you as well. But can we see him? Can we feel him there like we do here? Jesus offers them some of his breakfast. He's like, "I got some fish, got some bread. Come sit down. Let's eat." And that simple hospitality that Jesus offers them that simple sharing of a meal with them reminds them, refreshes for them what they had experienced before time and time and time again. Around fires, on the roadside as they traveled, at tables with people who had invited Jesus. At that table, that last night before he died, when he broke bread and said, "Every time you do this, remember me." Hospitality is a profound gift, friends. It's a profound gift where we can experience the other to be an embodiment of Christ's presence for us. There's some powerful experiences of hospitality that I'm sure many of us have had. But a couple came to mind for me as I was reflecting on this text. One was the experience in seminary of having 4 couples from Central America and Mexico at seminary for a year. And I was one of 2 people who spoke any Spanish in the entire seminary campus, professors and students alike. And they invited me and Lodi into that experience with them, because they were gathering every night in one of their homes, one of their apartments. And everybody would be there, all 8 of them, and then the 2 of us. And we would share table, we would break bread, we would eat food we'd never had before. We would try to hang on to the conversation, which was going so fast in Spanish that it was really, really hard. But there was something absolutely magical about that time. We felt welcomed. I felt completely enveloped by the love and the friendship that they were extending at their table. For 5 nights a week, we would be with them. And it was ultimately one of those 4 couples that called me aside one day and said, "Hey, you need to think about working with the Latino community in the States." I'd never thought about it. I'd never considered that as the trajectory for my ministry. I expected I was going to be in plain vanilla suburban, First Presbyterian somewhere. Well, not. And I'm glad for it. But, yeah. But do you hear what I'm saying, though? I mean, it was that hospitality. It was the building of that relationship around the table that utterly transformed where my life ended up and what my ministry ended up looking like. And Sil was with us the year we went down to Costa Rica to be with Fernando and his wife Xiomara at the church that they serve in Costa Rica. And one of the best pieces of that entire trip was the night when families from that church took one or another of us into their homes to break bread at their tables, in their houses, in their community, and get to know each other in that one-on-one kind of way that you can't do when you're working hard all day long. And almost to a person, there was a powerful and spiritual connection that occurred over the course of that conversation around the table. At the end of this month, about 30 folks from my wife's church are coming down here to be with us, to work in this neighborhood, to paint the house across the street, to build a ramp for the Ramoses at their house so that they can get down and to their car easily, and to paint the home of another one of the seniors from this community that goes to the senior program. And one night, that Monday night while they're here, we want to host them in families. We want to host them at our tables. Because they're coming as families, moms and dads, or single moms or single dads, or with their kids. And I want to break bread with them in a way that we can actually get to know each other face to face. Because what happens around the table when you do that with people who are coming from another world, like, the wealthy part of Austin is compared to West Side San Antonio, is you discover that you are not so different amid all the differences. You discover that your faith in Christ is something that binds you. You discover that you are human beings who share similar dreams and hopes and aspirations, as well as struggles and pains and trials. And in that sharing, you bind yourselves with one another in ways that don't happen easily in other places. Hospitality is a sacred and holy thing. And it is Jesus' hospitality on the beach that reminds and refreshes for the disciples their own sense and their own awareness that his presence has not left them, but will continue to be with them. And that they too can be those who share that presence with others. My hope for us is that we can cultivate in our own lives and in our own hearts and in our own minds the expectation that Jesus will meet us. Not just here, but out there and at table with our family, with our friends. Because when we come to this table as we do today, it is to remind us that every table is a place where Christ is also present. Last thing about this story that moves me is that in many ways it simply says Jesus knows where the food is. Jesus knows where the nourishment lies. Jesus can find the fish. Jesus is the bread of life. Jesus is the living water. Jesus is the vine from which we draw nourishment and sustenance. He is where we find what we need. And so, let us come expectantly to this table today, because he will be here. And I hope we can feel him and see him and touch him and taste him in this bread cup. Let us pray. Señor, por todas las formas en que tú te ofreces a nosotros, en lo conocido y lo diario y lo mundano, que es nuestra vida cotidiana, y en las experiencias especiales que tenemos de vez en cuando, y en las mesas que compartimos con nuestros amigos y familiares y también extranjeros. Preséntate para que te podamos ver y seguir con todo el corazón. Amén. of the students who are part of this congregation's life and connected to it through our various ministries. And Margie is going to read the names of those. I think Max is the only one who's actually physically present today.
Yes.
Max, good for you. Come on up, would you?
Max graduated from St. Mary's University with a Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science and graduated magna cum laude.
Yeah.
Sylvia Sanchez's nephew, and he was a huge part in our Boy Scouts. So he's a part of this church that's been here since he was a little teeny tiny Max. So we're very proud of him. He's part of our family. The other graduates are Lisa and Ramiro's son, Carlos Fuentes. He is graduated from the University of Texas in Dallas with a Bachelor of Science in Psychology. So the other 4 graduates are from the Vamos Ya program. They don't attend our church, and that's not a big deal, because what is a big deal is that they graduated from this area that is not known for graduating, for finishing school. So we're extremely proud of them. I wish they were here so we could tell them how proud they are, but somehow you have impacted them by helping the Vamos Ya program. You have helped them get to where they are. So that is Roel Aleman, who graduated from Lanier High School. Cassandra Martinez, who graduated from Fox Tech, the health professional magnet. Jasmine Mendez from Navarro Academy, and Gerardo Reyes from Lanier High School. So good job.
We have, for college grads, I like to give a little book that I enjoyed and that I think might be helpful to you. It's a book by one of my favorite authors, Rob Bell. And I'm going to pull it out, so why don't you pull yours out, so that way Carlos can pull his own out later. Can you read The book is called How to Be Here, and it's about figuring out how to live your life in a way that you actually can be present to it. And so my prayer is that you will find that to be a valuable gift to you as you continue in your journey, and we are incredibly proud of you. And Lisa, please pass the hug and the love along to Carlos on our behalf. And I invite you to join me in prayer as we just offer a prayer of gratitude for these graduates. Good and gracious God, we thank you with all of our hearts for Carlos, for Max, and for the youth from Vamos Ya who are now moving into young adult life. Thank you for the opportunity to have played a small but hopefully significant role in each of these lives as a congregation. Your scriptures say that fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And I pray that for all of them, an awareness of your sovereign love over their lives may be with them and continue with them as they move into the next stage of their lives and of their journey in you. Bless them, we pray, bless their families, and may they know that we rejoice with them in their rejoicing at this momentous time in their child's life. For we make our prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. Bless you. Congratulations. Amen. Grateful for all of the ways in which God comes into our lives and offers us the gift of grace and mercy and love and support. Let us return thanks with the gift of our tithes and our offerings.